Before we started having democratic governments, we had civilizations. Most of these civilizations were ruled by monarchs who passed down authority from one person to another. And as much as this resulted in conflict many times, leading to death, wars, and coups, they managed to sustain these civilizations for the longest time. Now, many empires might have come and gone, but the three which have been or were here within the last 1500 years and thrived while they existed include the Pandya Empire, the Damisa Kingdom, and the Chinese Empire. And that's what we'll be covering for the rest of today. So stay tuned while we explore these empires and everything that made them what they were during their time. The history of the Pandyan dynasty is not exactly known. They had been around for quite a good number of years before anybody noticed them. And so researchers cannot exactly place when this civilization was birthed and how it came about. However, we do have some early historical references to the Pandya dynasty found in the writings of the Greek ethnographer Megasthenes and the edicts of the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century BCE. But apart from that, almost all we know about this empire is from early and foreign sources. But the downside to this is that they do not provide much tangible information about the Pandyas. Another thing that helps us know the history of the Pandyas is the Sangam poetry. This poetry focuses on Tamil culture and its people. This means that just by reading this work of art, one can tell who was king, chieftain, and ruler in the period the empire was around. During their lifetime, they ruled in the southernmost region of India before the 3rd century BCE, and their reach varied throughout history. Their first capital was located in the port city of Kachari, and their latter in Madurai. This capital would later change locations as their reign expanded and eventually decreased. The Pandyan Empire grew and flourished for almost 4 centuries. This is why the Pandyas who existed in the latter times were often referred to as the medieval Pandyas. And while the Pandyas contributed greatly to the literary history of India, they were also known for their sculptural abilities, especially their temple architecture. They worked hard to develop Dravidian architecture, which is now broadly accepted as the temple architecture style characteristic of southern India. The Pandyas were well known for being great traders, and they sold materials like pearls and crops across many states. Next up, we have the Dumas or Kachari Kingdom, which is more medieval than the Pandyan Empire. The Kachari Kingdom was an early modern kingdom ruled by Damasa kings. This kingdom, alongside others like the Kamata and Chutiya kingdoms, had developed around the same time as the Kamarupa kingdom and was an example of how new states could transform communities. Just like with the Pandyan community, no one really knows how this one came about. According to traditional history, we know that the Damasa had their domain in Kamarupa, and that many of them left as a result of political unrest that had swept through the region. And because of history, we know that when they escaped, they crossed to settle on the other side of the big river named Brahmaputra. Therefore, they began to call themselves Damasa, meaning son of the big river. What started small and looked like it wouldn't expand shocked everyone else, because by the 13th century, the Kachari kingdom extended along the southern banks of the Brahmaputra River, from the Dikau River to Kallang River, and even included the valley of Dhansiri, in present-day Dima Hasao district. And in present-day Dimapur, the remains of the Kachari city are still present, and the locals there refer to it as the chess piece of Dima Raja, or the king of Damasa. However, things started to fall apart when they got into a fight with the Ahoms, and began a war that would eventually cost them lives, properties, and their beloved empire. These people attacked the Kachari capital and ransacked the city. As a result, the Damasa had to abandon Dimapur to retreat south to set up their new capital, Maybang. There, the king took a new name, and they adopted the religious practices of the Taiwan people. They also fought a few more wars in which they won some and lost some. And because of this, by the 17th century, the Kachari rule was withdrawn completely from the Dhansiri Valley and reverted to a jungle that stood as a barrier between them and the Ahoms. The political system of this kingdom also evolved as time went on. From 3 ruling clans, namely Bodosa, Tausengsa, and Haseongsa, they evolved to have ministers and other government officials who assisted the kings during their reign. But somewhere along the 19th century, the Burmese occupied the Damasa Kachari kingdom. The last king was restored by the British after the Yandabo Treaty in 1826, but he couldn't subjugate Tularam Senapati, who was ruling the villages by the hill at the time. And after he died in 1830, the British annexed the hilly region and made it into the North Kachar district. This they also did for Chandra's domain, so that it had become the Kachar district. And this was the end of the Damasa Kachari kingdom as we know it. The next and final empire we'll be looking into is the Chinese Empire. China as we know it didn't come around today. As it is, China is the oldest empire that is still in existence today, right after the Roman Empire. From 221 BC till 1911 AD, the empire came under the rule of 8 different dynasties who worked hard to push the continent forward and make the lives of the Chinese people better. One of those dynasties is the Qin dynasty. The Qin dynasty, pronounced Qin, was the first dynasty in the Chinese Empire. They established imperial academies, created the first Asian superhighway, and built the Great Wall, which is one of China's greatest landmarks today. From there, the Chinese people developed paper and books, gunpowder, and the printing press. Many of these happened in the Tang dynasty, and because of them, the Chinese were at an advantage to the neighboring kingdoms. They had paper to write and books to read, and they even had gunpowder to fight against their adversaries. Because of this, they soon became a formidable force. Fast forward to 1260, when Kublai Khan, the grandson of the man who founded the Mongols Empire, conquered the Song dynasty and established the Yuan dynasty. From there, he unified China and brought in other nations like Mongolia, Siberia, and countries in the Middle East and Europe into the Chinese Empire. This singular action would go on to start the Opium Wars between the Chinese Empire and the British people. The Opium Wars began when the British people flooded the empire with opium, causing the people of China to become addicted to the drug. This happened around 1840 and lasted into 1842. The Qing dynasty, which was the active dynasty at the time, banned the drug, and this led to a military confrontation, one which would last for 2 years and cause the Chinese ports to be shut down. As a result of this war, the Chinese Empire would hand over Hong Kong to the British. But that wouldn't end the war. Less than 20 years after this, the British, now backed up by the French, would demand that China legalize the drug, and this would cause a long dispute between them. Because of this, the empire would hand over some more ports to give them, and give them more business power. Still, within that time frame, the Chinese Empire clashed with the Japanese over Korea and lost. So they handed over Taiwan to them instead. A lot of things took place after that, ranging from wars, treaties, and laws. And by 1949, the Chinese government became a public republic under the rulership of Chairman Mao. Since then, the empire has been under rulership of communist leaders like Hu Wen, Jiang Zemin, and Deng Xiaoping, and they have witnessed much progress, making them one of the biggest thought leaders in the world right now. They control a huge part of the world's economy, and they have been involved in many inventions spanning various fields such as medicine, science, and tech. And it doesn't look like they're going anywhere just yet.